In honour of the Swedish English Literary Translators Association's 40th anniversary, Translators Aloud is hosting a series of readings of Swedish literature until the end of this year. Each month, a CELTA member will present one classic or one contemporary Swedish book. This month, I'm reading from my translation of David Lagercrantz's Dark Music, which will be published this August by MacLehose Press. In an artful reworking of Sherlock Holmes, it's the hot summer of 2003, the Iraq War is in full swing, and in Stockholm, an Afghan refugee has been found murdered shortly after he had refereed a junior football match. The police have a prime suspect in their sights, the father of one of the players, but they're unable to break him. Micaela Vargas, a community cop seconded to the inquiry, isn't quite so certain. She loses even more of that conviction when the team are ordered by their boss to pay a visit to the home of a renowned psychologist, Professor Hans Rekke. Rekke interrupted him. "You were on the firing range with your pistol this morning." "What?" "Yes, how did you know?" Franson looked at him in surprise and withdrew his right hand, crossing his arms. "Just a guess, nothing to worry about. I apologise, I interrupted you." "As I said," Franson continued, even more uncertain now, we're interested in knowing what more we can do to get him to open up, especially taking into account his personality disorder." "You're alluding to the conclusions in Werner's piece 7? "In part, yes, but we've also noticed ourselves how he behaves and how he brags." "Grandiose?" "Exactly, grandiose and impulsive. A psychopath, to put it plainly. Or do you have a different view, as an expert?" "As an expert, I'm of the opinion that very many people want him to be a psychopath," Rekke said. "How do you mean?" "How to put it? There's something about that word that is enlivening, is there not? A little Irish to your coffee, an aperitif to offset the boredom of everyday life." "Now you've lost me," Franson said. "I apologise, I have a tendency to be cryptic." Rekke fell silent, his eyes glassy. It was as if he were constantly entering into and emerging from intense concentration. "I like your watch, it's a stylish, classic piece," he said. Franson looked down at his wrist. "What?" "Oh, thanks. But the crown appears to be damaged. You should get someone to look at it, otherwise it'll come off." "There's nothing wrong with the crown," Franson muttered, angry now, tugging at his shirt sleeve to hide the wristwatch. "But more to the point, was it really such a good idea to get worked up over the P7? Franson started. "What do you mean?" he said. "Munvig, for example," Rekke said. "Is that a common word nowadays?" No, I don't believe so." Franson glanced at the others as if to say, "Do you see? He's impossible to talk to." "Well, what do you say?" Rekke said, turning towards Micaela. "Is that what you say in your neck of the woods? That was a Munvig guy I met yesterday." "No, not exactly," she said. "Yet it appears 3 times in the preliminary investigation files. How can that be?" "I don't know," Franson said. "In that case, allow me to explain," Rekke said. "Munvig is a poor translation of the English word glib." "Glib?" "Quite. Swedish dictionaries tend to define it using several words: smooth-tongued, loquacious, superficial. But when Mia Hjerling did her Swedish translation of Robert D. Hare's Without Conscience, The Disturbing World of Psychopaths Among Us, she chose one word instead of several, and that was munvig, which took hold, especially since it ended up at the top of Hare's psychopathy checklist. Munvig and charming is what the Swedish translation says." "I don't understand," Franson said. "The word took hold and began to appear in more popular works, or what we might describe as more light-hearted books, such as How to Uncover a Psychopath." "All right," Franson said, clearly discomfited. "Exactly, and you and Inspector Sandberry have read it, have you not?" "What's that got to do with this?" "You've allowed your opinion to be coloured by it," Rekke said calmly. "You claiming we made it up?" No, not at all. It's merely that your perspective was altered slightly, as happens to us all when we read books that fascinate us. But the troubling thing here is that there was no dissenting voice, no advocatus diaboli, no via negativa. Sorry? You were all, well, almost all, looking for the same thing. And that was to corroborate the conclusion in Per Werner's piece 7, which is unfortunate, and not just because Per is an idiot. Is he an idiot? Yes, by and large. It became a vicious circle and strengthened the tendency in the inquiry that we psychologists usually refer to as confirmation bias or group polarization. What? You use the term tunnel vision in the police, don't you? His words went through the team like an electric shock. Yet Micaela saw that the man didn't at first grasp what he was saying. Franson gaped. Then he bellowed in a combination of anger and confusion. The hell are you implying? Rekke met his gaze for a second or two, then turned to her. It's a particularly common trait in homogeneous groups with a strong leader. Do you have a strong leader? What do you say, Micaela? She jumped, and not just because he knew her name. Something dark ignited within her, perhaps even a vestige of a thirst for revenge. Dark Music by David Lagercrantz will be published on the 18th of August, and it is available now for pre-order. Thank you.